So talk to me about how you show or a multi-level value outcome for each of your clients. That means how are you taking things to developers and showing value, but then showing the same value to the CTO?
So I think a lot of that is interpersonal relationships, right? So like, first of all, you have to kind of get to know people well enough that they start to trust you and will listen to what you have to say. And I think that that goes differently depending on what level you're speaking to, right? So for me, usually the first people I encounter are like the engineers and the folks who are actually implementing. And a lot of times they're kind of afraid that I'm there to, oust them or to take their jobs, or because they aren't doing their job or anything like that. And I think the easiest way to go about kind of fixing that is to befriend them. So a lot of it is what you wouldn't expect, right? So a lot of it is just talking to them, getting to know them, and letting them know that you are there to help them accomplish their goals, as opposed to just get out of my way and I'll take care of it. So in addition to getting to know the engineers and letting them know that you're there to help them, I think that it's important to also show your value to the CTOs and the folks that are around as well, by following through on what you say you're going to do. So just like any business relationship, showing that trust and building that trust rather, and showing them that you are there to help them accomplish their goals as well. Obviously that's a little bit different than the engineers who are implementing, and for the CTOs it's more like, oh, this is going to help you by saving you money here, or by making life easier for the engineers so that they can work on different things that are also important to you.
Right.
So really just finding what's important to the people that you're talking to and making sure that you kind of harp on that over and over and over. So
Yeah.
a lot of psychology goes into it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really runs concurrent to what we have seen at ScaleSec, right? Because a large number of our clients continue to come back to us.
Yeah.
And maybe, do you believe that portion of it, the relationship forming, is probably the most important part of what we do?
Absolutely. I don't think that we could do our jobs if we didn't form those relationships. Kind of like Marcia says, cloud therapists, right? So
Right.
like we have to listen to what it is that they need, and a lot of times they don't necessarily know what they need. So we need to work through helping them figure that out, and then provide them that value that we promised,
Yeah.
which a lot of people fall short on, I think.
Absolutely. What's a process that you implement to kind of guide? Because I feel like as consultants, we come in with ideas, but our clients also come in with ideas about, we have this problem and we think we know how to solve it, and we think, ScaleSec thinks we know how to solve it, but then you land in this place where neither one of you have the complete package, right? How do you step through helping our clients find the right solution?
So for me personally, it's a lot of questions, right? A lot of it is getting to know what it is they think. If you just go in and kind of like shoehorn yourself into the situation, then things aren't going to go well, right? It'll be, like you said, I think this, they think that, so we've got to be aligned, right? But if you don't ask the questions to figure out what it is that they think, we don't necessarily know what it is that we need to deliver.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. One of the things that you and I both have experience in coming out of the heavily regulated industries is compliance. And there's an interesting talk that you've given recently about compliance versus security. And how do we divide that when we go into clients? And they advise us that they have everything is compliant. They've signed off, and so they have no worries about their security because they have their compliance in place.
So I kind of try to break that down much like I did in my talk, right? Compliance and security are not the same thing. That's really great that you have a compliance framework that you're working out of and that everything is compliant as of right now. But a lot of times compliance is a point in time snapshot. So the point of security is to implement controls and the ability to see that you are compliant at all times. And to a lot of times kind of get ahead of that before somebody can make something non-compliant. So instead of it being we do this PCI compliance once a year, it's more of a continuous and constant thing than a one-stop situation.
How have you seen that continuous, let's call it continuous governance, implemented within organizations?
So a lot of times it is through, like you mentioned, monitoring, right? And one of the coolest ways that I've actually seen it implemented is a little bit different than that, kind of on the front end of things, using OPA. So kind of making it where you can't really go wrong, right? So instead of saying no, it's kind of just guardrails. Like your engineers can develop what they want to develop as long as it's within the guidelines, and those guidelines are hard coded into your systems, so they can't fail, right? And it gives them a lot of autonomy because they can continue to do things because they already know what's approved, and you have the peace of mind that they are building things to whatever state you need it to be in.
Yeah, and that's kind of in addition to the infrastructure as code that we keep harping on as being an important part of the process, it's also that policy as code that limits what that IAC will turn into in the end. How have you seen organizations benefit the most from that?
So I think that what I've seen is the quickness with which people are able to develop things. A lot of things in past companies that I've worked with have gotten stuck on like approval levels, right? Depending on how big the company is, you have to go like 2 or 3 levels up and be like, can you review this? Can you look at this? And that takes time, manpower, and things like that aren't always there. But if you implement that at the beginning in the policy as code manner, then you can just kind of keep plowing straight through. You might get something that tells you, no, you can't use that, but it does tell you, okay, you can use this instead.
Right.
And it's basically auto-approved. So it's kind of like CI/CD, but for like the actual development thing.
Exactly, and that goes to the earlier point that I made with Stephen, is just that when it comes to dev environments, if you make them too restrictive, people will find a way. And so by using that policy as code, you keep that lower restriction on the dev environment, so they feel like security is not a stumbling block, we're not a roadblock, and it also allows them to evaluate and come give you feedback as to why something should or shouldn't be blocked, right?
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I've had conversations with friends who are not in security but are developers, and they are like, no, I hate it because it's always in my way, it's always whatever, and so I just ignore it and then do whatever I'm going to do anyway. And I think that this is a great example of how you can do both. You can still have that security that's there and not get in the way, right? It makes things faster because there doesn't have to be that person on the back end saying, yes, you can do this, or no, you can't.
Absolutely.